Hello, and thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight is the end. We have made it. This is the last chapter of Finding Starlight by me, Brittany Boles. Finding Starlight is the true story of my life, as I remember it, told through the lens of a past life regression session that really happened. We have woven in and out of early life memories and lives that took place long ago in different realms and maybe even in our own imagination. So here we are with the final chapter. I've been reading it one chapter aloud for 42 weeks now. So thank you so much for joining in. And of course, as always, prior chapters are available on my website, brittanyboles.com. This is an unpublished, unedited, unsigned manuscript called Finding Starlight by me, Brittany Boles. And here we go. Chapter 30, Supernova. To the fairy, I said, I don't think I'm ready to talk just yet. The cloud gave my face a damp nuzzle before resting on my lap. You get me, I thought to it, enjoying the sensation of cool mist on my hand as I petted the fluff. We sat in amiable silence for a few minutes, and I noticed that the sun had lowered in the sky, nearly to the horizon. It was the first inclination of time passing I had in the forest, and I mentioned it to Katrina. Our time here is almost up, she said, looking in the direction of the now more orange than yellow orb in the sky. That's almost exactly what he said, I replied, thinking of my father. He had much to share with you, verbally and otherwise, she agreed. Though time is a fickle game we play, we do have agreements to keep. And there is your physical body to consider. My physical body? I thought, looking down at myself. I could see myself as solidly as I could see her, the waterfall and the trees. The body you have laying in New Hampshire on my couch, she reminded me. It is nearing its capacity for journeying. Though we are healing and restoring with as much power as we can offer you, there is only so much a human body can absorb in a day. We need to be mindful of that limit. You keep saying we. Who do you mean? I asked, interested in the solid turn this conversation was taking. Well, your spirit team, of course, she smiled. Or did you think that I was orchestrating this entire thing myself? I mulled that over. Spirit team, I thought, and then immediately understood. Or grouping of guides, light beings, angels, demigods, and the like. As though she'd heard me for the 1,000th time, Katrina nodded. What if I'm not ready to be done yet? I asked, getting nervous. I still didn't understand what the lesson was in all of this. You aren't, she said. We still want to know, don't we? Who or what you are in your core. What is Brittany's truest nature? Should we find out? I asked, more grateful for this magic after the reminder that it wouldn't last forever. The cloud moved from its place on my lap to grow large enough for the both of us, and I wasted no time boarding my misty ride. Let's, she replied, joining me. Beyond the forest, the planet, the sun, And even the edge of the galaxy, our little cloud, floated up, 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 until we came upon a scene somewhere within the vastness of the universe. Massive currents of color swirled like sandstorms in a desert of black. The movement of color and matter were a splendor to behold. I had always imagined outer space to be cold, endless darkness. Science had led me to believe that the distance between galaxies was made up of incomprehensible nothing. How wrong I was. Space was alive with energy and sound. Consciousness was as obvious, wisdom as apparent and foreign, as if we were in a room full of tribal elders. My thinking mind could not keep pace with the hugeness I was experiencing. I could hardly identify what was happening. We had come to witness the birth of a star. It happened like this. A river of particles flowed through space in a rushing current of gases, clouds, and rock. Like an enormous waterfall, the river fell or floated into a spinning pool. This became a silken tapestry, folding in upon itself until the river was completely absorbed. More and more dense the pool became, losing translucence and gaining solidity. When it was a perfectly formed sphere of solid iridescence, it burst into flames. A star, an orb of light, shone on the now dark backdrop where the particle stream had previously run. Stunned, I lost contact with the cloud and dropped into the experience, becoming the star. Wise and vast, ancient and powerful, my light was shining. Connected to every sister star in all universes, I was at once one with the source of existence and contributing to it. A galaxy floated nearby, warm and safely ensconced in my light. Time was nothing. I felt the diversity of this, my galaxy, as though it was both new and familiar. Closer were the planets in my own orbit, and like a parent knows her child, I was intimately connected with each breath of life upon them. I took pleasure in warming their land. Nearby were massive black holes, windows to the multiverse. They were alive, these friends whom I passed every eon or so and knew by name. We were a council of sorts, my fellow stars and I. We shared a network of knowing that included the rise and fall of people who we considered to be young, beautiful, and delicate. We sustained life not with heat and warmth, as many of the planet walkers believed, but with compassion and love. All at once, all knowledge and history of everything was present and available to me, to us, the stars. We were not what people called God, but intricately connected to that force. Helpers, perhaps, of the God and its children, nurturers and advisors, playmates and parents. My life was long by human standards, though time does not exist. My galaxy existed well, it evolved with love, learned much, and then it became our time to ascend, transform, change expressions. We, my fellow stars and all our planets, made the choice to move forward, to shed density and start anew. It happened with a single blink. An endless landscape of sparkle filled my vision as I exploded or imploded or came apart entirely. My blast lit the sky like 1,000 million atomic reactions. Parts of me touched every other light being as we are all connected. Our entire universe celebrated the spectacle of my transformation. From star to supernova, I burst. From nothing to nebula, I experienced the grand evolution of this other life. Everything had changed. Now I was the clouds. No, I was the current. I could feel beautiful gases and particles, gigantic minerals and rocks, and a million forms of heat. I was expansive. A nebula of old and new, at once the pieces of the star that I had been, and a nursery for new life. More vast, less dense, and even wiser than before, I had become a creator. This stardust was everything, and it was alive with pure potentiality. All matter is a collection of star specks. The space between these specks, because nothing is solid, all is permeable, is creative capacity awaiting intention. Like a blank canvas, this space between waited for an artist. Thoughts and intentions were my brushes, and stardust my paint. As painter in painting, I became aware of the rich potential of this new expression. Fertile stuff for growing new life from old was this gaseous, semi-solid field. I breathed to stir the stardust. Poof! A bright, tiny baby star appeared in its place. Pleased with the ease and beauty of creating, I searched the rich expanse for another opportunity. Each and every particle was alive with consciousness, ready to take shape according to my imagination. Even when I created something solid, the space between would still await the dreams of people who were yet to be born. They, like all people, would create their own reality as easily as I now painted their planets. Just there, clumps of dark rock were floating in shiny gases. I began to sing the ancient song, a low melody, the great and powerful Om of existence. The rocks danced. The baby star came closer, learning its role, offering warmth and love to this newly forming planet. Heat was the necessary element to solidify the rocky core. Together, we made a bubble of atmosphere around the surface. An elliptical pole was established between the star and its first orbiter. I burned with excitement, liquefying a cloud of gases until they poured together, melting into purple, blue, and silver molten. Harmonizing with my song, I added a low note of pressure, compressing the liquid into rock and guiding it toward the star. Again, the star, growing and learning to act on its own, lit the rock with a burst of flame and made its second planet. This one chose a wider orbit as its place in the fantastically spinning galactic dance. For a long time, I played in my garden of atoms and matter. The entire universe was my home, neighboring galaxies, my lovers, and solar systems, my art. Eventually, Katrina's distant voice broke through the musical silence, calling me back, asking me gently, "What do you see?" I tried to answer in the language she had spoken and found that I could not. Nebula did not speak fairy after all. We knew and understood, but we were not dense enough to form language, not as she knew it. "Come back," she intoned. "Come back to the breath. It is your way home." Breath? "Follow the breath, Brittany," sang the fairy. I remembered distantly a human body in a high-ceilinged yoga studio learning to breathe in a long ago or soon to come time. I awoke with a gasp on the cool cushion of cloud, which was floating over the pool almost under the waterfall. Mist from the cascade gathered on my palms, which I used to wipe my face. I felt very strange. The cloud set me on the ground at the edge of the water and nudged me, encouraging me to drink. I lowered my entire face to the water, kneeling, and slurped it up in a very creature-like manner. Each sip was cold, crisp, and brought me back. It wasn't long before I felt the earth under my knees and the wetness on my nose, and when I did, I sat up and looked around. It was dusk. The sun had set beneath the tree line. Katrina was perched on the mushroom, engaged in what seemed like a conversation with the cloud, and vaguely I wondered why it never spoke to me. She saw that I was standing and fluttered to my side, offering a delicate hand to steady my balance. Together we returned to our patch of moss and mushroom, where the excited cloud proceeded to fly circles around my legs. When I was ready, I spoke. "So it turns out people can be stars and other things throughout our many lives," I mumbled. Katrina was bouncing on her seat with excitement. It was obvious that she was trying to let me orient myself, ease into the knowledge, but that she could hardly contain herself in the meantime. "In all the places I have been and all the things I've seen, this is simply remarkable. A star! Of course you were a star, are a star. What is that famous quotation? We're all made of stardust." "Indeed," her voice trilled. She attempted to sound surprised, but something in her tone belied the facade. "I mean, really? A star? It seems a tad far-fetched, even to me," I said, running my fingers through my hair with uncertainty. "Why is this so much weirder than anything else we've seen today?" I wondered. "Okay, let's back up a little bit then," she offered. "Your father, the demigod, yes, I know he is a demigod, told you that it is time to remember who you really are. He gave you gifts, protection, renewal, insight. All of this so that you could embody the true capacity for love and light. Yes? What is the good of having capacity, though," I said, "when I keep stumbling in the dark? What is the point of any of it? Every time I try to do something with my life, I just fall into a pit. Can't you see that you've had an amazing light in your life, that you have been a bright light in every story you've told, every memory we've seen?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "Have we been seeing the same stuff?" I replied, incredulous. "I've been showing you the darkest recesses of my soul, a childhood riddled with abuse, all the mistakes I've ever made, so much death, my near destruction of everything, near suicide. I've shown you my demons, and you tell me all you have seen is light?" I didn't say all I've seen is light. Her voice was rich with compassion. I said, you have been a bright light. I agree that I've had some magical, fantastic experiences, I conceded. And we got to see some of those. The island, for instance, I suppose was most of it. I trailed off, still feeling shocked and confused. What is going on, I wondered, not for the first time. Here, let me show you what you have shown me, she said. The cloud burst to life, flashing scene after scene in quick succession. The memory of drowning, my body filled with light, reflected the same colors as the aqueous being with whom I danced. My father in a different form, giving me a choice. And then compassion and droplets of light passed to my mother as I touched her cheek. Child me was swinging on a beach, flying over the sea to merge with the brilliantly setting sun. In the vampire man's bed, surrounded by a light bubble, I protected my soul from the person who was maniacally drawn to it. From a locked, cold closet, my golden light traveled to find Marion, bringing her moonlit cat to my side. I covered a freezing little sister in glowing warmth on a couch in the frigid Wisconsin winter. My hand rested upon the bark of an ancient tree, stirring it to life. A beacon of a teenager, I stood in front of a congregation, offering people forgiveness and love. A psychic in a store, drawn to the aura of a girl with a book. In a hospital, nearly defeated, I created a healing ball of light. Shining white spirits surrounded me in the center of a rock circle as I forgave the traumas of my youth. A dreadlocked magic man sharply turned his head, drawn to the golden sunshine surrounding my body. And then he combed out and danced through the tangled web of energy. A portal of starlight emerged from my belly, linking to the sky on a moonlit night, surrounded by mangroves and bioluminescence. On a tropical island from the small studio apartment of an auburn-haired psychic, I helped a dark, chaotic mass of spirit, a woman who didn't know that she was dead, pass between the realms. The psychic intoned, "You have a Christ-like aura. You have come to do great things, to shift the balance of the world." Hank, watching me on a sailboat, listening to music with lyrics. That's the sound of sunshine coming down. A prophetic dream of floating through the blue water with whales led me to a deck of cards. A spark of intuition reignited. Wrapping my sister in golden light once again on Thanksgiving, I rediscovered my power. Sparks flew from my fingertips when practicing yoga in my living room. Silvery violet aura burst through a shadow net as archangels and light beings crowded into a small, dimly lit room. And God came to me in a labyrinth and allowed me to see the world through glowing eyes. A demigod father offered moonlight to a daughter who was not afraid to stare into his face and demand answers. A supernova exploded in the sky. New galaxies were created. By me. My true nature, I breathed, awestruck, is not dark at all. It's a light. She was clapping, and sparkles of actual fairy dust were flying all around her in a shimmery explosion of joy. Looking closer, I saw that she wasn't even sitting on her mushroom anymore, but was floating above it. The darkness has never been inside of me at all, I realized. The cloud caught the excitement and zoomed in and around the sparkle burst, making a glittering comet trail through the air. Into the pool it dove, a glowing underwater orb, up and under the waterfall, triumphantly splashing through the sheet of misty rainbow water. It's because of your light that shadows appear to be so dark, Katrina explained. You dive deep. It's what you've come here to do. You have the strength to, what did the psychic say? To alter the balance. You are a star, Brittany. You always have been. A star. I tested it in my mouth, and it tasted as clear and perfect as the pool of water from which I had drunk, which I recalled Katrina saying I had created, which I remembered lived within me, always. But, I interjected, why all the darkness? Darkness isn't, she answered. When a light turns on in a darkened room, the shadow does not extinguish the light. It transforms. It becomes light. Such is the usefulness of your capacity to burn bright and far, that pain and shadow may transform into light. You've carried this sadness and hurt so that you can turn it into light, just as your father said. You have processed the pain others were carrying and spilling out. Like a crystal refracting light into rainbows, you have changed their sorrows into something else. You have freed these experiences from their commitment to separation from light, which is what darkness is, if it is anything at all, so that they can move along their energetic evolution. Here on Earth, we are experiencing what we know to be a free will existence. Shadows and light coexist, and the scale tips from time to time. The brighter we burn, the more those who have chosen to live outside their own light try to take from us. Shadow provides contrast, and in your case, it gave you an opportunity to see your light. You chose to experience these things so that you could dive into the depths of human despair and shine brilliantly for those who need a beacon. At this time, humanity is ascending. We are waking up. And your ability to dive in and light the way for others is, well, it's a salvation. It is absolutely necessary. You are a star showing the way home. Showing people the way home, I repeated. But when we watched my star life, the galaxy ascended with an explosion. How is it that we ascend now without all of that? That is still to be determined, she said, by people like you. The world is full of those who have incarnated at this time to shine, to assist with our ascension. Earth, our Gaia, our mother, planet, is herself in a state of energetic evolution. Something beautiful has happened here. She has fallen in love with her people and wishes to take us, as we are and can be, with her into the new light. Whether we will agree to such a drastic transformation is a subject of some debate on a galactic level, but that is a conversation for another day, she finished, leaving me with 1,000 new questions. I opened my mouth to ask some of them, but she held up a hand. In the growing darkness, I could hardly see it or her anymore. Firmly and kindly, she said, "You, Brittany, are a bright light. You always have been and always will be. What you will do with your light, these magical gifts in the darkness you are able to see, but are not of, is your life's purpose. You get to choose." I woke on a couch in a darkened room. Outside, the trees were silhouetted guards on vigil. Though I could not see them, I felt their protective circle and sighed a breath of gratitude for the newly familiar. Katrina's decidedly human face came into focus under a headlamp she was wearing. When she turned on a light, I recognized that we had been sitting without one, and I felt an immediate aversion to the electricity. She noticed and explained, "This light was bothering you. You kept saying that the electric light burns and was too distracting, so I turned off the lamp and found this to write by. Such fun!" And then she added, "Take your time. I brought you some tea and snacks." I breathed and stretched deeply. I found that I was covered with a fluffy blanket. It reminded me of my cloud, drifting peacefully above a rainforest waterfall. And then I sat upright, awash with the vivid memories of what I had just seen. "How much time do you suppose has passed?" Katrina asked, her eager eyes wide and curious. "I don't know," I breathed, and was amazed at how large and full my voice felt. "Maybe 5 minutes? An hour? A year?" A tinkle. She was laughing like a little bell. She smiled and handed me a steaming cup of tea that smelled like a forest in the morning. "Wow. What we have seen," she said, rather than asked, as though this whole thing had been a grand adventure on which we should now remark. I slowly sipped from my mug, allowing the warm concoction to drift down my throat and settle in my belly, warming me from within. Another deep sigh filled me with peace. 7 hours have gone by in this room, she informed me, turning off the camera, and many lifetimes elsewhere. "How much of that did you see?" I asked. "We went to a forest, to my safe space, and you were a fairy?" I blushed. "We kept seeing things on a cloud, like a screen, or getting onto the cloud and riding to different times, places, dimensions." I trailed, not knowing how to explain. It was too big. "We all visit our subconscious in different ways. Every session is different. Though, this is the first time I've ever met a star," she said with a hint of the mischief I had come to know and to love. "So you were with me there in the forest? And on the cloud?" I exclaimed. "I traveled with you as far as I could go," she answered. "There were stretches of silence, which you'll see when and if you watch the video. I couldn't follow you everywhere, though Spirit did give me some flashes of insight." "Oh," I said, conflicted. "But how do I know what's real?" I asked. "How much of it was real?" "Real?" she asked. "What is real indeed?" Then she looked at me over her glasses and said, in all seriousness, "You get to decide what is real. It's your journey. What story will you tell?" Epilogue. Her studio is easy to find. Sitting on top of the lake, magical yoga is a place filled with light. Her doors are always open. Her heart is ready to receive. Each morning the space glows with soft sunlight filtering in through a wall of windows. The sparkle of her eyes mirror crystals on every surface, confirming the magic of the place. It is everything she wanted it to be. Students follow her words, breathing into their bodies and discovering their potential. This is what I call the Rasta Mudra. She demonstrates the gesture. Once upon a time, on the shore of the Caribbean, I met a Rasta named Paul, who washed my hair with the nectar of a night-blooming cactus flower. But that's a story for another day, she says with a smile that her students return. Use this mudra whenever you need to let in the light, to feel joyful, connected, and free. Later, at the town docks, a golden-haired child runs into her arms, gleefully shouting, "Mama! Mama's back!" She spins him around, laughing. The sun is dipping lower, preparing to set into the mountains. "I can't believe I live here," she thinks as she looks toward the glowing sky. "Thanks for hanging out with him so I could teach," she says to her best friend, Emily. Ruffling the child's long, wild hair, Emily asks, "How was your class?" "It was beautiful," she answers. "They loved it." "What did you teach?" Emily asks. "How to find the light and to shine." The end. Or the beginning. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me for 42 weeks. That should have been 30. Thank you for witnessing my pain, the story of the people who hurt me and stole from me and who I hurt and stole from. Thank you for seeing me for who I am and for hearing me in my truth. I tell this story to illustrate that anybody can heal from trauma, that everybody is light. Right now we are in this ascension. Right now we are in this trauma, this pain, this unearthing of what we think is darkness. But darkness isn't. And if I can come from fucking homelessness and depravity and addiction and loss and suicidal tendencies and depression and anxiety, mania, and the anti-hero place with nothing, and I can sit here today, you can too. And you will, because we rise together, or not at all. And we are rising. So find your light and shine. Namaste. I love you.